Welcome. So in this part of the lesson, we're just going to go through some examples here. The first one says, sketch one complete cycle of y is equal to 2 sine of 2 theta. So here are our axes here. This is going to be y, and as you can see here, we're dealing with theta. So our horizontal is going to be theta. Let's begin by identifying what our amplitude is going to be. Our amplitude is just what's in front, so it's going to be 2. So that means I'm going 2 up, and I'm going 2 down. Next, we're going to figure out what the period is going to be. The period is going to be 2 pi over whatever's in front of our theta here, which is just 2. These 2's are then going to cancel, so the period is going to be pi. So what that means is, well, let's now think about it. What does our sine graph look like? This is just something you need to know. You just need to know what the sine graph looks like. It goes up, it goes down, then it goes up again. And this right here is one period, and we know one period is pi. So that's going to be pi right there. Now, the next thing I do, I find this useful, especially when you've got trickier questions, is I create something called the x scale. And what this is you take the period and you divide it by 4. So in this case, the period is pi, so you get pi on 4. And the reason why we do that is because we can kind of think of this as having 4 parts to it. You got this part, then you got this part, and then you've got this part right here, and then finally here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And each of these is separated by pi on 4, because you think about it, we've just taken the period and divided it by 4. So this is going to be pi on 4. Then we're going to go pi on 4 plus pi on 4. This here is going to be 2 pi on 4. And then here is going to be 3 pi on 4. And then if we were to plus pi on 4 into this, we would get 4 pi on 4, which is a full period. And you can see why this is useful. You can find the maximum and the minimum, so the theta values for the maximum and the minimum, and you can also immediately find your intercepts. So here, 2 pi on 4, that's just going to be pi on 2. And just like that, we have sketched it. If you wanted to, we could do one final thing here. Let's just find the range, just so we're all comfortable with it. Our range here is going to be from -2 to 2. Perfect. That's how you would approach that. Let's now go on to our next one. So we're going to do the same thing here. We have y is equal to 1/2 of sine of theta on 2. So this is y, this is theta. Let's begin by finding my amplitude. My amplitude here is going to be 1/2, so what's in front? The period is going to be 2 pi over whatever's in front of my theta. Now this can be confusing to some people. I could rewrite this as y is equal to 1/2 sine of 1/2 theta. Now it's quite clear that 1/2 is in front of my theta, but you should be able to just read that off that as well. So that means 1/2 is going to be here, which means I'm going to get 4 pi as the period. So now let's just reflect on this. This amplitude is telling me I'm going 1/2 up, and I'm going 1/2 down. And this 4 pi means that it's going to look something like this. Up, down, up. And this full thing, that's one period, so it's going to be 4 pi there. You also might like to find the x scale here, just to be cool. X scale is going to be 4 pi divided by 4, which is pi, which means this is going to be pi, this is going to be 2 pi, this is going to be 3 pi. And of course, if I was to plus another pi onto this, I would get to 4 pi, which is right there. And that's it. That's what we would draw there. Let's just finally cap this off by finding our range. Our range for this would be from -1/2 to 1/2. All right, let's keep on going. So these ones are a little bit different. So if you can see up here, we just had to sketch one complete cycle. You're actually not going to come across many questions that get you to complete just one complete cycle. Rather, the normal way that you're asked these questions is they give you a domain, and you have to make sure that you do it correctly based on the domain that you've been given here. So this right here, you should know this is my domain. All right, so let's do what we normally do here. We find the amplitude. The amplitude here is going to be 4. So that means I'm going 4 up, and I'm going 4 down. The period is going to be 2 pi on whatever's in front of my... Now we have to be careful here. So we've got f of t. So let's say this is f of t, and this is going to be t here. So it's whatever's in front of the t. So it's going to be pi. And then what's going to happen is this pi will cancel with this pi, which will leave me with 2. So that means the period is 2. Now, it's also a Cos graph, so we have to know what the general shape of that looks like. It's going to look something like this. Wow, that is beautiful. Okay, I'm surprised that I drew that well. All right, and we know that is 1 period, so this is going to be 2 right here, and we could actually label this endpoint. It's going to be 2, 4, 2, 4. The next thing that we could do is we could find our x scale. Let's do this in orange, just to be consistent. So we're going to find our x scale. So that's when you take the period, which is 2, you divide it by 4, so it's going to be a half. When we're dealing with cos, what that means is this right here is a half. This is going to be 2 on 2. This is going to be 3 on 2. And then if we were to plus a half again, we would end up with 4 on 2, which is just 2. And of course, a better way to write 2 on 2 is just 1. And as you can see, we were able to find both those x-intercepts there. So again, what we're doing here is we're taking the period, we're dividing it by 4, so we can find the 4 different parts to this graph. And the final thing that we're going to do here is we are going to just find our range, just for the fun of it. So our range is going to be from -4 to 4. Perfect. All right, let's keep on going now, and we come to the last one on this page. And this one is a little bit trickier, so let's give it a go. So again, we're given the domain here, and then this is what we're dealing with. So it's going to be f of t, and then this is going to be t here. So let's find the amplitude. The amplitude is going to be 2. So that means we're going 2 up, we're going 2 down. Then the period is going to be 2 pi on. Now, what's in front of my t here is 3 pi. These pi's will cancel, which will leave me with just 2/3. So what that means is I've got cos, so it's going to go down. It's going to come up, and that right there is going to be 2/3. And I might actually just stretch that out a bit more. That right there is going to be 2/3. Now, what do you notice? What do you notice here immediately? I've drawn one period, which takes me to 2 on 3, but the domain is 0 to 2, which means I need to go all the way to 2 here. I need to keep drawing until I get to 2. So I'm going to have to draw more than one cycle. So the question before us is, how many cycles are in the domain? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the domain and we're going to divide it by the period. The domain is going to be 2 from here, and then we divide it by the period, which is 2 on 3. And then remember, this is the same thing as state change flip, which will give me 6 on 2, which is going to be 3. So that means we're going to get 3 cycles here. So that means I'm going to draw another one, and then another one again. Wow, that is pretty bad. Let me see if I can draw this a bit better. Perfect. So as you can see here, I have 1, 2, 3 cycles. Now, what we can say here is that this is 2/3. So if I plus a period onto this, I'll find where my next one is starting, and I know that period is 2/3. So that means I'm going to go 2/3 plus 2/3 is going to take me to 4 on 3. And then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to plus another period onto that, which is going to be 4/3 plus 2/3, which is going to be 6 on 3. Let me just draw this again. So it's going to be 6 on 3, which we know is 2. We know that's 2. So that means this point up here is going to be 2, 2, because this is 2 as well. So do you see how I have reached my domain there? My domain is 2, and by drawing 3 cycles, I have arrived at 2. Hopefully that makes sense. And now we come to another tricky part, and that is we have to find the x-intercepts of each of these, which is going to be a bit tricky, but we can do it. What we're going to do is we're first going to find the x scale. So that means I take the period, and I divide it by 4. Now that's the same thing as timesing it by 1 on 4, which is going to give me 2 on 12, which is the same as, let me do it here, 1 on 6. That means we can come over here and we can say this point right here is going to be 1 on 6. This here would be 2 on 6. And then this here would be 3 on 6. Now I'm just going to ignore this one because we just care about the intercepts here. So this is 1 on 6, 2 on 6, 3 on 6 is that. Now to find my next intercepts, now this is where colors is going to be very useful to us. So I might begin alternating colors just to kind of help us out here. From here, let me just stay with orange for the time being. To get to my next one, do you see how these are a period apart from each other? Because they both are starting, like if I was to do one full circle, I'm coming back to where I started from. So if I just plus a period onto this, I'm going to be fine. So 1 on 6 plus the period will get me to my answer. Now my period at the moment is 2/3. If I went 1 on 6 plus 2/3, we're going to have to change 2/3 into something with a denominator of 6. And if I was to do that, what I'm going to end up with is 4 on 6, which is going to take me to 5 on 6. So this here is going to be 5 on 6. Let me come here. Let me just do this a bit different. So what I did is I took this, and this is going to be 5 on 6. And then, as you can see, if I was to go again, it's also one period away to get to my next one here. And this again, I'm going to plus my period to it. So this time, I'll take this one, 5 on 6, and I'll plus the period again, 4 on 6, which is going to take me to 9 on 6. So this will be 9 on 6. Let's see if we can do that again. 9 on 6 is going to be there. So I plussed a period there. And then, that's it. That's it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same treatment, but now for the other one. Let me just do this in a different color. So we said this is going to be 3 on 6. To get to my next one, so here, let's make all this purple. I'm going to have to plus a period to it. So we're going to take 3 on 6. I'm going to take 3 on 6, and I'm going to plus onto that 4 on 6, which is going to give me 7 on 6. And then I'm going to take that 7 on 6, and I'm going to plus a period onto it again, and that's going to give me 11 on 6. So that tells me this here is going to be 7 on 6. So I plussed that, and then we do it again. This is going to be 11 on 6. So you can see it gets a little bit messy. So make sure you're using your space wisely here. We're just plussing on a period to find our different x-intercepts there, or in this case, they're actually t-intercepts. But you get what I'm saying. So that's how we would approach it. That's how we would do it. Obviously, you wouldn't end up having all these lines here. All these lines you would not have. I think I just rubbed out a number. All these you would not have. But just to help us out, as we learn how to do this, they're helpful. But let's now just clean it up. Let's get rid of them. That's what the final thing should look like. Make sure all your intercepts are marked and make sure everything is good. Our range here would be -2 to 2, in case you're wondering. And yeah, that's how we would approach this. Hopefully you found this useful as we went through these questions and you feel somewhat confident of doing this yourself. I will see you in the next part of this video.